Welcome back to the show, Mark. I am privileged to be able to have this discussion with you because we are going to get into some bombshell material, basically about all of the fraud that's still going on in the markets. For those of you who are just tuning in and maybe you don't know who Mark is, I think most of the time people would describe you as a veteran short seller, but I think more aptly you're described as a guy who has a professional BS detector, which is going to make this conversation so much more, I'm sure, comical, enlightening, and just fun all around. So once again, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for this, Matt. I kind of like you a lot, which is why I do this. Normally, I'm not a YouTube-centric guy, but you do a really good job, and you're consistent, and you speak truth to power, and I kind of like you. So I'm more than willing to be on your platform and see if we can move the needle today.
Honestly, my entire goal with this is even if one person listening has a little bit more insight of kind of just the stuff that happens in the market, a better way to protect themselves, I think we both had a pretty good day. So with that in mind, I would love to rewind back to, I guess, June, July period of 2022, where from my research on you, I found out that you were reaching out to, I believe, Bloomberg, trying to sound the, I guess, whistle a little early on FTX. So can we start with the story there of what all happened there and why did Bloomberg pass on wanting to have this discussion?
Yeah, that's really quite the hoot. But because you're you, and I'll give you a little extra. Let's go with the full thing. So I had a really, really bad arm injury in early May.
Okay.
I kind of had an issue with a horse. I didn't fall off, but I sort of got messed up big time.
Ooh.
So I was off the physical list this whole summer. I wasn't able to do anything till I got in one piece, and I'm okay now.
Great.
So in my spare time, this SBF was basically bothering me and on my mind since last fall. So while I had some extra mental time on my hands, a pal of mine and I started going over everything he said in the past, his behaviors, checked LinkedIn, checked the people who work there, and just nothing about this thing fit. Very easy questions, could never be answered. And if you really heard him speak, he talks, I said in figure eights. He never answered a question. He never answered anything directly. Everything was some indirect implication. And where he said he made all his money was on this Korean Bitcoin arbitrage. And I looked into that, and it's very, very, very hard to do. Even for sophisticated people, and you needed your money there, and there's all sorts of regulatory hurdles, and he had no mentor. He had no one to step up for him. He couldn't explain where he got his money. So I thought this whole thing was just a bunch of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I got into it, and this whole political ramification of things and how he donated money, and no one on LinkedIn had experience in exchanges. Dan Freeberg was the chief regulatory officer. He was a poker crook. Basically packaged everything together and pitched the Bloomberg crypto team out of London. There were 5 people on the team to basically go after him and Wang and answer questions and fill in the blanks and the whole thing. And Bloomberg looked at this thing and they just passed.
So you put together a dossier of the information. You're like, I think something smells because of X, Y, Z. You gave that to Bloomberg.
We had we probably spent, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours on the phone with them.
Wow.
And then on top of that, sent them emails, just stuff, putting it all together, putting all the pieces together. And they said they were going to do a story on them, but these questions were too critical. And if they asked them, they said they would lose access. They also said it's not good for business, but I didn't want that really out there because I don't want anyone to get fired. But Bloomberg was captured by these guys. New York Times was captured by these guys. Wall Street Journal captured by these guys. CNBC captured by these guys. And the amount of money that FTX or SBF or their PR flax passed around, I think, is insane. And money, when you pay people off, I mean, that's one way of saying it, does funny things. When people advertise or sponsor, less people are willing to speak out against an advertiser. And the whole thing just nothing fit. Sort of a sad state of affairs that the mainstream media doesn't want to pick this up. And it's not like I parachuted in from Mars. I'm a well-known guy, in the fraud detection bullshit space. Everyone knows who I am, who's in the media, and they blew me off. And I said on a podcast, one, it pissed me off that I was being ignored, and B, these issues kept coming back and it kept getting worse and worse. So, Keith at Hedgeye was always intrigued with my tweets, and I've since been shadow banned on SBF and FTX on Twitter, which is a whole nother deal. But he had his little conference, and I was on there, and I just went off on FTX, and it turned out the timing was really good. And I think anyone watching this, if you have $1 invested in an offshore crypto exchange, my recommendation is to get it out ASAP, because I think they're all shaky. I mean, it's just a question of when the dominoes fall, and I think the dominoes will fall, and I think it's really bad. And I don't know who the last man standing will be. It's probably T0 for sure in the security token business, in the alternative digital assets, but it's not going to be these offshore based guys. I think they're all going to collapse. The question is when, how fast, and what triggers it. So
I would definitely back you up there. I think these keeping money on exchanges, even in the US, and you're saying even outside of the US, I think self-custody is the way to go. But just to interject for a second, I have to admit, I wish I had your BS detector. My audience already knows, but just for the point of transparency with the person I'm having the conversation with, I was backed by FTX. From January till June of this year, I was associated with them. And I guess it's a tale of the scenario of you don't know what you don't know. And personally, I find it to be an embarrassment for me. It's a blemish on my brand. And sometimes I think about it logically of like, okay, I was always a fan of self-custody, especially after Voyager. So people FTX, it had cheap transaction fees, and people who took it off as of right now, they are 100% whole because they didn't leave it on exchange. And I think that's an important crypto lesson going forward. But more on a personal note for me, like I alluded to, I wish I had that BS detector. I looked into it. I looked at what's going on, and I get it. It's fraud. It's fraud that's wrapped up in crypto. But what happened here? It was already illegal 100 years ago. They took clients' funds from an exchange and were trading it on a hedge fund. And that's against their TOS. I read their TOS. I read what was going on, and I thought it was good. And I think I got into the scenario. Sam Bankman-Fried was everywhere. He was buying everyone out. He seemed like he was the guy with money. It was backed by some big players. You hear it like Kevin O'Leary is talking about it on the CNBC. He's talking about CNN. He's talking about it on Fox. Everyone's talking about it. So I think this is maybe sometimes a function of being human, of you just want it to be true because it seems like everyone else is backing it. And how could it go wrong? And then it very quickly blows up in everyone's face. So like I said, I wish I had that insight. And maybe if you could expand a little bit more. So in your opinion, something was up just because it was too big, too fast, and the parts didn't add up. Like the things that were being pulled off didn't make sense for I suppose their credibility within the market. You didn't understand their backers. What was it that you're just like, hang on, the numbers are they're not jiving here?
Well, what you say is true, and nothing jived. I mean, that's the incredible part of the whole thing. Normally in frauds, I mean, the CEO of MiMedx, he went after me, but he also went to prison. And I exposed him for all the bullshit they did. But at least they had a product. Did the product work? Questionable of work, but at least they had a product. So you can check the box, they had a product. FTX had nothing. And the guy couldn't answer any questions, and he had no one who could pull this off. And I think one thing that's truly missing in the world, and this is my latest bent, is the lack of independent thinking or the lack of thinking in general. I mean, we've gone to a FOMO world. We've gone to a monkey see, monkey do. We've gone to he's a smart guy or she's a smart gal. I want to be like them or do what they want to do. But part of it is I'm 62 and SBF is, let's say, 30, and he was worth 10 billion, at least made up 10 billion. I know some special people. I really do. I know some people who are superstars. I know the Olympic mountain biking person for the U.S., Kate Courtney. She is a spectacular human being, hardworking, driven, athletic, determined, the whole deal. She's about 28, right? I know some ball players. I know some tremendous stock guys. I know people found business. If you're that exceptional under 30 where you can make $11 billion, you're exceptional. And there's nothing about this guy that was ever exceptional. And you could never get an explanation how this guy made his money or what's special about him. Or in this bear, winter of crypto winter, what they call it, think about it. Horrible market for crypto, interest rates going through the roof, stock market getting killed, his customer getting killed, all the coins or whatever the fuck you want to call them, altcoins, shit coins, all this stuff's collapsing, yet he's immune from the business. His business is doing well while everyone else is getting smoked. It makes no sense. It's impossible to figure out how that is. And then, even though they raised money, privately, the amount of money this guy was spending, and yet spending to bail out known frauds and Ponzi's, 5 of them, whether it's Celsius or Voyager or Scaramucci or all these various failures, he was investing in these things in front of the bankruptcy, not behind it. So it's not like he was buying anything at 3 cents on the dollar or buying customers on the cheap. He was just flushing money. And then they get this narrative that he's the JP Morgan of crypto. Well, no, JP Morgan never bailed out frauds or Ponzi's. So you start putting this all together. My grades in school were dog shit. Horrible. Okay. My SAT scores were horrible. I'm not sitting there and talking in big words. When I don't understand something, I simply say, I don't understand it. But nothing here added up. Nothing here added up. And instead of me just nodding my head like everyone else saying, yeah, he's great. Yeah, this, that, and the other, I just said, foul. I can't figure this out. This makes no sense. Why would a homely looking guy wearing dirty clothes with some shitbag hairdo, why would he have billboards of himself all over the place? He's not a brand. I mean, FTX is like E-Trade. It should be on FTX. So every single sign was there that something here not only was wrong, but just made no sense to begin with, other than throwing money at everything that moved, sponsoring baseball umps shirts, the Miami Heat arena, Tom Brady, Giselle, Super Bowl commercials, billboards of himself, bailing out frauds, having no one of distinction running the company, at the company. And your chief regulatory guy is a criminal, Freeberg. Just a poker cheater, flat up. I mean, so what here made sense? Nothing, other than these grand words. He wants to give, he wants to make a lot of money to give money away. Drives a Toyota Corolla. I mean, it all nothing fit. His parents were Stanford professors, so he has to be a good guy. No, you can believe if you want, but verify. A, I never believed. And B, when I tried to verify, I couldn't verify anything. And it's not like I spent hundreds of hours on this. I couldn't get anything to work. I couldn't get anything to jive. The difference is I think everyone suspected something was wrong, but people don't have the balls to speak out, because when you speak out against a guy who's worth billions, you can get sued or this and that. I'm not afraid of getting sued. I get sued plenty. Mm-hmm. But if you speak the truth, and I figured something was wrong enough here to speak out, that if someone heard me and I made sense, they'd pull their money from FTX. And I have a ton of DMs from people who I saved. And that makes me feel really good, and it makes it all worth it. I have a ton of DMs from people who never heard of me and didn't. But, my response is you should follow me on Twitter at Alderlane Eggs, which is all I have is my Twitter. But maybe next time people will listen. But, don't necessarily listen to me. I'm not the gospel. I'm not the Lord. I'm just a starting point to make you or to make people want to think. And if it doesn't make sense to you, or as I say a lot, if you can't explain it in a paragraph or less to a 10th grader, you probably shouldn't be there. You probably shouldn't be in the thing. And you for sure shouldn't have money in any of these offshore exchanges. And when people say, oh, this is not investment advice, bullshit. Whenever anyone talks about a stock, it's always perceived to be investment advice. But unless you can touch it, explain it, or know where your assets are, or know where they're safe, we're in a dangerous world. Mm-hmm. Interest rates are going up. There's a war. There's inflation. The stock market is shit. The economy is whatever it is, getting worse. So, I said, I was just talking to someone in Germany, people work their ass off to make their money. Mm-hmm. They work a 9-to-5 job, or they work at a factory, or they bust their ass, or doing construction. You work hard, folks, to make your money. Spend the time to think it through how you invest your money, because most people just listen to just anything. Just spend the time to think about it, think it through. If it doesn't make sense to you, don't do it. And don't do it because the guy next door did it. And I think a lot of people heard of a lot of people making all sorts of money in crypto, and they say monkey see, monkey do. And you have Musk and all these other clowns saying what they did in Hookah Coin or Dodge Coin or Cat Coin or whatever the fuck it is, right? Unless you know what you're in, be leery of it. And don't just listen to me, or don't just listen to you, but your YouTube and what you do, I believe in. And it should be a starting point for people to think and people to go from there, in my view.
I definitely agree with you. A couple things I want to unpack there. So I agree with you in the sense of monkey see, monkey do. A lot of people saw money and no one wanted to miss the gravy train. And you were talking about people kind of doing the research at all levels, whether it's just a person signing up for FTX all the way up to these highest levels of the VCs, the auditors. And I need to ask you, especially because of what's going down really right now, is the fact that we have Andrew Sorkin on CNBC, who's very, very fond of FTX. They're about to do an interview with Sam Bankman-Fried at the Deal Book, New York Times Summit. And also Kevin O'Leary is associated with CNBC. At this point, did they just not do their research? Or do you think that they couldn't find the fraud? Do you think that they were paid off? Where do you fall in on kind of these the media talking heads who went from being super supportive to some of them against it? But I think the most recent thing I saw about Mr. Wonderful is he was asked after the whole debacle if he would invest in Sam Bankman-Fried again, and he said yes. So where are you falling on all of that?
Well, I think O'Leary should be fired from CNBC on the spot. If he believes that, he should. I mean, I go back with him when he was running that fraud at the Learning Company. So he doesn't like me. I can't stand him. I scare him half to death. He is completely full of shit, and he's not only an awful person, he's an awful investor. He's horrible. I think these guys are captured. Are they paid? I'm not going to make that accusation because I don't know. But something is very, very, very untoward with CNBC, with the Times, with Sorkin, with all these guys. I don't know exactly what it is. It's not really my business. But, I mean, I'm amazed SBF's lawyers are letting him talk, given the trouble he's in. But again, that's not me. I mean, I find this whole thing to be beyond suspect. And the media and the mainstream media has let people down in a very, very, very big way, which is what leads to the rise of Twitter and guys like you and alternative media where people can attempt to try to speak truth to power, because you're sure not getting it from the Times and you're sure not getting it from CNBC, which I call the Cartoon Network, and it's very disappointing. I mean, they get more from me, or they get more from my Twitter than they can get from that stuff, because at least I'm not afraid to mix it up or say it. And if I'm not your cup of tea, don't follow me. Mm-hmm. Or block me or do whatever. And if I intrigue you, dig deeper and figure out where the paths can go. Mm. But it's kind of, there's online gambling. You can trade a stock online for free or very little. You can do the crypto. You can do whatever you want online where you think you can make and also lose a shit ton full of money. And it's dangerous. It's not good. It's media centric. I mean, people say, if Tom Brady does it, how bad can it be? Or is his wife the model? I mean, they had everyone. They had Steph Curry. They had Brady. They have Giselle. They got CNBC. They got the New York Times. They got billboards. They got stadium sponsorships. They sponsor you and 700 other people. So they're everywhere. But A, where did the money come from? Mm-hmm. B, how in the world can they be actually making money in the so-called crypto winter? Mm-hmm. Who's running the exchange? Who are the brains behind it? Freeberg's role. Why is he bailing out frauds? He's not a JP Morgan. He's a complete fucking criminal. And this was a criminal deal from the start. And you can't mix customer money with your money with a hedge fund and run it through the pipes of this Silvergate, which I think is a complete and utter scam.
I would love to talk about Silvergate there, but with the who's who and the what's what, and we're talking about all these people, do you think it's a fair question of where in the world were regulators? What's going on with them? I was just reading that apparently they invested heavily into like a podunk bank, like the 26th smallest bank in the US. So how did we have a foreign crypto exchange based in the Bahamas owning a US bank? Where was the SEC? Where were regulators? Who were the people that were giving the seal of approval for all of this to occur in the US with US investors? That's something that has me scratching my head. Like, I guess, like, have you heard anything? Do you have any deep thoughts of where were the, I guess, adults in this situation?
Well, I have a lot of deep thoughts. Some I can share, some I can't share. I mean, assume I'm talking to the powers that be, and assume I'm talking to people who can actually make a difference here. Assume that. Okay. So some of those conversations are between me and them. So when I say on Twitter, I'm up to no good, I'm working my fucking ass off to put an end to this bullshit of what one person can do. Where were the regulators? The regulators have been absent for quite some time, because what really keeps the economy going is the stock market. And you have cheap money and you have an SEC that doesn't do much and shit's offshore and no one wants to regulate crypto. And the more you talk about regulating crypto, the more crypto grows. But I have the solution. I mean, the solution is very simple. It's very easy. And I'm proactive rather than reactive. And the one way you stop all of this bullshit, you don't need to regulate crypto. Regulating crypto, in my mind, is a mistake. Let crypto do whatever crypto is going to do. What you need to do is cut off the on-ramp and the off-ramp, or the arteries and the veins that enable these offshore scam exchanges to function. And all of these exchanges are powered through the SEN network, which is Silvergate. Okay. If not for Silvergate and the SEN network, none of this shit would be possible. None of it.
Now, could you give all the listeners very quickly, like, what is Silvergate as a business before we get into like why you think they're up to some nefarious actions?
Silvergate, symbol SI, it's a publicly traded U.S. federally chartered bank in La Jolla. Okay. Symbol SI. They have deposits, which are going down rapidly. And they run something called the Send Network, which allows, and they brag about movement 24/7, 365. You can move money from them into offshore crypto exchanges, and then back through them as many times as you want, and then from Silvergate into a U.S. bank. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
They enable hyper movement of money from them into exchanges back and forth through these various offshore crypto exchanges.
Gotcha.
They brag that they've done over $1 trillion of movement in this Send network. My point is, nowhere can you KYC, which is know your customer, or AML, which is money laundering techniques. There's no way you can accurately gauge what's going through your network in real time at that rate of speed. There is no way. The fact that FTX was their largest customer is a huge problem. Huge problem, because FTX, it's implied, admitted to, people have come with concepts that FTX money, Alameda money, customers' money has all been commingled and has also moved through the Silvergate network. So where this all shakes out, I'm not really at liberty to get into great details.
Okay.
But if the Send network did not exist or was shut down, all of this nefarious activity would cease. There would be no network to do it. There have been a lot of documents that I've shuffled around to various parties that indicate a lackadaisical attitude at Silvergate. The chief risk officer was the CEO's son-in-law. He's since been replaced. I've heard stories of up to 30 employees at Silvergate being relatives of the CEO. I mean, there's a reason that they're the only ones who do this. And it's been made very clear that the big banks would shut this whole thing down. I put something out on my Twitter where SBF himself said, if not for Silvergate, we wouldn't be able to do this because the big banks wouldn't allow it. And the big banks wouldn't allow it because it's, as I said on Twitter, it's the largest, in my opinion, the largest money laundering network in the free world. And I defy anyone to go check and see the $1 trillion that have gone through this thing, how much of it is legit. Because if any of it is illegit, it should be shut down. Because this is a bank. This is a federally chartered U.S. bank. And I'm a taxpayer and you're a taxpayer. And I don't want my tax money being spent to ensure these lackadaisical asshats improper behavior. And the CEO gets on the Cartoon Network, CNBC, and he has a picture of Jesus on a cross behind him and a picture of some saint sitting at his desk. I mean, religion in the stock market is somewhere near the wig indicator. You're just a complete fake if, you have to hide behind religion. So without Silvergate's Send network, FTX would not have been able, yet alone Alameda, would not have been able to exist and do the damage that they did to people. I think these guys are going to be accessories in suits, in various other things. But if you just stop or break down the flow of money into these foreign exchanges, the world would be a lot better, and you wouldn't have the dangers to the system that you have. And the real danger to the system is people are losing a lot, because when these things go bankrupt, all the assets get frozen. So, I don't like to see people who work a lifetime to get wealth lose it all on these scam-ass exchanges where the money movement's been enabled by someone like Silvergate. I'm short Silvergate stock. I don't want anyone to think that I'm a neutral observer here. I think this thing is garbage, and I think it shouldn't exist. I have no problem with it being a sleepy ass bank. I do have a problem with this network enabling all this transfer of money, currency, crypto from platform to platform where one is shadier than the next. I have a significant problem with that because this is going to continue until all these things burn down. And, which I think they're in the process of burning down. So I think Silvergate has enabled this. They've enabled this through the Send network. They need to take responsibility for what they've done. Government needs to step in and make changes. And as you said, everyone should learn from this so it can be a learning exercise so this shit doesn't happen again and again and again, because you can't trust any of it. You can't trust any of it. And, again, you can like me out there. Don't trust me. You can hear what I say, but verify. Verify where your money is. Verify how safe it is. Verify that if they go bankrupt or have liquidity issues, can you or can't you get your money? And if you can't, get it the fuck out of there before it's too late, because you don't get 80% back. You don't get 70% back. You get nothing back. It's all lost. Same thing with your collateral. So it's a dangerous time. It's a dangerous world. There is no regulation. Maybe the regulators step up. Maybe they don't. Maybe the government steps up. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm just one voice out there, but I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all because things are in place to siphon money from hardworking Americans to criminals, and I don't like it. And that's exactly what happened with SBF and FTX and Alameda and BlockFi and all these other scam ass exchanges.
So how bad do you think it gets? I do appreciate you disclosing your short position just for the point of transparency. Do you think this is something that it just comes down a little bit and it starts trading at like it's just normal bank value and we take out all the crypto? Or do you think there's a chance of this thing like fully blowing up and going to zero?
I think Silvergate's going to blow up. I don't know if it goes to zero. Nothing goes to zero anymore. The Send network needs to be shut down. Their deposits go away because people can't play this crypto game through them or go to a very low number. And if you look at the fines that JP Morgan had to pay in the Madoff fiasco, and they didn't even touch the money. I mean, they were in the billions. So any form of fine, lawsuit, court judgment, legal against these guys, push these guys beyond over the edge. Because I always say, if a company ceases to exist tomorrow, will anyone miss them? And no one will miss Silvergate. No one. I mean, none. So the question becomes, what happens to their so-called Send network, which has enabled all this shit? My opinion is it's going to get shut down. 2, after it gets shut down, what is Silvergate? Answer, prior to this whole thing, it was a bank that had 40 million with an M of deposits. So it's some little out-of-the-way shitbag bank, just like these other banks. And these crypto clowns convinced his real name is Alan Lane. I've renamed him Alder Lane, which is my farm because I own him. So Alder Lane was convinced to turn himself into this crypto superhighway, and he went from 40 million in deposits to 14 billion. So he grew astronomically. And he became famous. His stock went way up. Now he's going to become famous for a different reason, and not a good reason. So I think there's nothing there. There's no earning power at this company. I think this crypto moving money around for crypto exchanges, I think people are going to get onto this in a big hurry, especially if I'm successful in my efforts to expose this thing the way it is. And I'm confident I will get the job done. And I think there's nothing there. I mean, I'm not telling you, anyone can do whatever they want with a stock. I can give a rat's ass. But as a network, the Send network should be shut down. It should be shut down ASAP, because if it was such a good business, JP Morgan would be in it, Citibank would be in it, HSBC would be in it, Wells Fargo would be in it. There's a lot of people who would be in it. PayPal would be in it. There's a lot of ways you can move stuff around if it was okay. But to me, they just piss all over the anti-money laundering and KYC, rules that the government has. I mean, I just invested in a private company, my son and I mean, they basically stick their head way up my ass. I mean, they ask for driver's license, they ask for passport, they ask for bills that match the driver's license. Mm-hmm. They ask for everything. They ask for domestic bank accounts, SWIFT numbers, the whole fucking deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a real ordeal just bank wiring money around or investing in speculative assets around. But you can't move money 24/7, 365 from here to Uruguay to Hong Kong to Paraguay to Singapore to Switzerland to some fuck-ass exchange somewhere. I mean, where it's as easy as sending a Zelle. That's not what this is about. Mm-hmm. And I also guarantee you that FTX and Alameda didn't move their money around in all these private companies through JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or all these other legitimate places. So significant questions need to be asked. I'm asking a lot of them. I keep going. And answers should be had. Right now, there's not a lot of answers. And changes should be made so the average person can be protected, so they don't lose fucking everything. I mean, it's one thing to buy Bitcoin at 40,000 and then it trades to 16,000, right? That's just a bad investment. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to buy Overstock, which I like at 60, and it traded 25. Bad investment. It's another thing to lose your fucking collateral or to lose your account that gets frozen and you're a general creditor in a bankruptcy. I mean, that completely fucking sucks because you lose all your money, not just some of it, all of it.
This definitely sounds like a second case of just regulators falling asleep at the wheel. I mean, this is a bank within the U.S. And I mean, for the longest time, all I heard was politicians complaining about crypto in general because they accused it of covering up illegal, illicit activity. But then yet it seems like a financial mechanism that's really allowing this to perpetuate is actually being within the U.S. That's just like blowing my mind. So I'm particularly interested to see how this all plays out. Do you have, if we take a step back and look at crypto in general, what are your thoughts on Binance? Like, are you trusting what's going on there, or are you kind of staying away from all this?
I don't trust any of them. I mean, he's another character in this thing. I mean, I don't trust any of them. Anything offshore in this space to me is beyond suspect. I mean, there's guys after me. They want me to get going on Tether, and I don't know Tether from weather, from feather, from any of it. I just don't know it.
Okay.
But what I do know of it, or what I read, is the shit is so suspect, you shouldn't touch it. Now, again, it's up to you if you want to play it, and if you want to play a speculative asset, God bless you. Mm-hmm. Okay. And whether I agree with you or disagree with you, again, that's on you. You're an adult. Figure it out. But what's not okay is to have a dime in any of these offshore exchanges that go tits up and you lose all your money. That's where it becomes not okay. Everyone can say, buy Bitcoin, buy crypto, buy this coin, that coin. That's all on you. I don't care. I always said I can't explain it to anyone, and no one's been able to ever explain it to me why this stuff makes sense other than FOMO or YOLO or whatever the fuck people say now. But you can't watch an exchange seize up, go bankrupt, and you lose all your money. There's no part of that that's okay in my view. Gotcha. So whether you're the SEC or you're the Senate Banking Committee or you're the Federal Reserve or whoever you are, you need to put protections in place in the United States of America that pipes can't come from here to those exchanges or criminals or money launderers or terrorists or whoever take crypto and infiltrate the U.S. banking system. I mean, that you just can't have. There I'm real strong. Because the second you allow that bullshit to go on, then the whole system can go. So
if I happen to run PR at Silvergate, let's just say that was my job, you'd almost think that if I heard accusations like this on the internet, it would be super easy to disprove of like, let's calm everyone down. Like, here's proof. Here's what we need to show. And it would be A-okay. In a weird way, I find the silence to be more telling than anything else. Because if I was PR, I'd be like, oh, no, here. Like, if you guys are concerned about, here are documents X, Y, and Z. We're ready to go. We're completely secure. So like I said, I think this silence is more telling than anything else. The fact that they're not willing to engage not only with you, but the general public about what's going on. I mean, the most recent commentary we got was BlockFi, unfortunately, because of FTX, had to file just now Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And the biggest commentary is like, oh, we're not that exposed to them. That's it. That's what we know right now. Like, no one's giving hard, fast numbers or anything like that that can really drum up, I would say, the public's, I guess, faith in the security of where their money is. And it blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
Well, first of all, the company is run by a clown. It's run by this guy, Alan. I call him Alder Lane. And he at best is junior varsity. He's not very smart. He's not very bright. He's in way over his head. He was explained to do this for a bunch of fast crypto guys overseas. They say SEN is not approved by the government, but it's not disproved. So it's like they don't want to ask for permission because they'd be denied.
Gotcha.
Here are the simple facts. The simple facts are they've run $1 trillion, which is a big number. I mean, I put it out on my Twitter. I was trying to figure out it's a 1 and how many zeros. It's a 1 in 12 zeros. It's a big fucking number. That's what they've run through the system. They have, best I can guess right now, 7 billion in deposits, maybe 8, going down rapidly. The amount that they have in deposits versus what they've run through their system, let's just say, is 120 times.
Oh, wow.
That's significant. That's significant leverage through the system. Market cap of the company, give or take, is roughly $1 billion. $1 billion. They have book of 35, which is not good, but let's say it's good. So they have book value of roughly $1 billion, right? If someone decides to kick the tires and they figure out that FTXs, Alamedas, embezzlement, whatever, went through the SEN network, Lord fucking help them. Lord help them. Because they will be a party to every single lawsuit that goes on with FTX, with all these customers losing their money because their money was basically stolen and run back through SEN, right? So in my view and my opinion, they have done nothing, dog shit, nothing on this AML KYC front, right? If they want to prove me wrong, knock your fucking selves out. But of the $1 trillion, what percent, right? On you can't. This is like a pregnancy thing. Either criminal shit has gone through there or it hasn't. Yeah. There's no halfway. Okay. If it has, the whole thing's going to get shut down. So their margin of error, given what they've run through, to me is so razor thin, right? It deserves commentary. So if Alder Lane, aka Alan Lane, wants to shut me or any other skeptic up, and there's plenty of them out there, he simply says, this is the test. We ran through all of the FTX transactions, all of the Alameda transactions through our SEN network, and we've back tested them, and they're all fine. So shut the fuck up. But they can't do that because they haven't done anything. They haven't done, and I think I read somewhere that they farm out their AML KYC, and somewhere down the line they're going to say, or their alibi is going to be when the stock is $1.38. Their alibi is going to be, how did we know? How could we have known that we were getting defrauded? Well, then you shouldn't have kept putting out these stupid mid-month, mid-week, mid-quarter, midday press releases. I mean, how many updates have they given saying absolutely nothing? Many. So they keep putting out these PR things saying nothing. You know, they say misleading reports on Twitter. Are you talking about me? Well, fuck, let's get on a Spaces call, and you co-host the Spaces call between Alder Lane and me. winner take all. I guarantee you he won't last 10 minutes. He wouldn't last 7.
Have you had any correspondence with him or anyone in the company?
Zero. They know where to find me. And again, on FTX, I went to Raul Paul, the Real Vision guy, who actually likes me, right? I've done a lot for Real Vision. And I said, I think on 4 or 5 occasions, how about you moderate a conversation between Sam and me? I have questions for him. And there's always, no, I can't do it. No, I don't know him that well. No, I can't do it. Bullshit. You can't put SBF and me in the same ring because he wouldn't make it 18 seconds. The questions I would ask him. So Silvergate and the Sen Network have significant issues. And until they address the issues are going to get louder, not softer. And if, God forbid for them, this thing is shut down or the government kicks the door in, then they really have problems. So they're best to come clean on exactly what's going on rather than all this fucking cock and bullshit. Oh, we have 20 million of exposure, but we may have it here or it may be there. If you're loaning money against someone's crypto assets, where are those crypto assets held? Because if they're held at one of these firms that goes under, you don't have collateral because the assets are frozen at the bankrupt exchange.
No,
so
that's a really good point.
I have a lot of questions. I'm being more vocal on Silvergate so everyone can say they did not know or heard, or I was making it very clear. So, that's kind of that.
I appreciate it, and I'm excited. A couple weeks, couple months, so we could definitely recap of how it all ends up playing out. I would love to move on to really inherently the thing that brought us together months and months ago was just this concept of fraud and malfeasance in the markets. And at that point, it was through the world of just meme stocks and what was happening. It was GME transformed into AMC, and that's obviously been a wild, wild ride. So following your Twitter, I've seen a big shift, and it seemed like you were kind of team support AMC of what's going on, and you were pitching a concept of tokenized securities, and we can track what's going on. We know who's doing what. And then out of nowhere, the current CEO of AMC, Aron, I believe he told you to step down, stand down, something along those lines. And to me, that was kind of a turning point in your opinion on Aron, and it seems like also the company. Can you explain to us your current thoughts and what's going on in terms of AMC?
Yeah, I thought I had a really good idea. Again, I'm tight with these T0 guys, and I gave and sent Aron an idea to tokenize basically various assets of the company and put it in the hands of shareholders, these security tokens. It would have served a whole lot of purpose. It would have done a share count. It only would have gone to shareholders, not people who are short the stock. You can't be short the token. And the token would have value. And I thought it was a really good idea. And instead of engaging me or talking to me about it further, he asked me to stand down, and he said, this idea is probably, it's partly illegal, and which it's just not. Because, as it turns out, ICE, which is the New York Stock Exchange, owns 20% of T0. And these security tokens are completely legal, and T0 is SEC and FINRA approved. So the second he told me to stand down, I sold my stock, and I said something is very, very, very wrong with Aron. And I sold my stock at a loss because I thought it was a really good idea, and I thought he could do something for it. I thought he could reward shareholders. I thought he could then get a share count. He could then put an end to whether the shares are naked short or not. And I think it would have checked every single box. But it also would have restricted him from selling stock, of which he sold all his stock. And everything since then has been downhill. And then he turned that ape community against me, which is fine. And I blocked a ton of people. And then subsequently, he came out with this harebrained idea of issuing this preferred. And the stock rallied, and I went on everyone's, Terrors and other Spaces calls and told everyone to get the fuck out of the stock, that this is really, really, really a bad deal, that he's going to end up backdoor diluting everybody. And this is a crazy thing. And Adam Aron said it would be to, help with the shorts, and I said, it's bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I told everyone who would listen to get out. And I was treated so poorly. I said, this is my last space call ever on AMC. And that was somewhere between 25 and 27. And now the thing is, maybe $8 combined. And the APE itself went from 10.5 to 1 in very low change. And it's been a disaster. So Adam Aron could have done something forward thinking. He could have done something creative. He could have done something for the shareholders. Instead, all he's doing is he screwed the retail holder big, to the great benefit of himself. He pays himself way too much money, and he sold all his stock. And I think it's a huge disgrace. And Gasparino, I've worked with him and given him my thoughts, and he's done a wonderful job of warning people to get the fuck out of this thing, of exactly what would happen, and that people would get diluted. And sure enough, they've gotten diluted, and Adam Aron's killed everybody. It's just he's destroyed people's wealth. He's destroyed them. And the same people, the apes who've kept the company out of bankruptcy and out of trouble, are the same people who he screwed. And if the apes would have let this thing go bankrupt, Adam Aron would be without a job. He wouldn't have made money selling a stock. The company would have been bankrupt, and the story would have ended a whole lot better for the individual investor than it's playing out right now.
To offer a little bit of context on that and maybe push back in a certain sense. So just for everyone listening, Adam Aron has personally profited $40 million from selling AMC over the past year and a half. He has personally profited $40 million. And I believe insiders at AMC in that same time frame have sold $100 million worth of stock. We were told a couple earnings calls ago that it was for, I believe, proper estate planning. But also, you and I both know that your estate can include stock. And if you think stock value is going to go up, why in the world would you sell it? That just doesn't quite make sense. And for those of you who want to, you can look into it. But Adam Aron is also on the board of Norwegian Cruise Lines. And part of his board position is he's given Norwegian stock, a stock that he's literally never sold anything of. So if you're going to do proper estate planning, why would it be of the company that you're currently in opposed to the one that you used to be involved with and are now on a board member? So I find that weird. To my understanding right now, though, he does own stock because just of his position, he's been gifted more. So I think right now he actually is probably the single largest shareholder of AMC. But I find it interesting that with your,
he's nowhere close to the largest shareholder. He doesn't
individual, not like BlackRock.
Being given options. Given options or putting your money at work is a whole different deal. Getting options where you can blow out a stock, that's very different than Joe Sixpack putting their real money in the stock. Everything that he can sell, he's sold. He's vesting on more options because the board gives that blowhard more stock, and he pays himself a ridiculous sum for doing absolutely nothing. What's he done for the holders? What's he done for the people who've saved the company?
I definitely want to talk about that, but just rewinding for a second, you also brought up Gasparino, who you've done work with. I would say with him, my opinion on him is, I think sometimes on Twitter, and I've seen it, I've seen you get attacked, I've seen him get attacked, I've seen myself get attacked, and all of a sudden it does become a very quickly defensive thing. So now he has an abrasive exterior, and I kind of look at it of, he really is fighting with people considerably younger. And if he was really trying to help, I kind of wish if that was his goal, I would wish that there was different demeanor, behavior, but also I'm not in his shoes, so I don't know how much he's been attacked. And sometimes I think he crosses the line of the things he says. And then other times I'm like, well, he's trying to just talk about stocks in this scenario, and it all gets muddied. So I don't know. I guess I wish, maybe sometimes I wish he approached it the way you do of, hey man, I'm not here to fight you individually. I'm here to talk more about the stock market, to have more of an open dialogue if he was on the side of, as you put it, the average Joe. But with what you just said with Adam Aron and all that, not that long ago, there was a proposal for everyone who owned AMC to authorize more shares, thus so they could do a dilution and obviously do a capital raise. And the concept was to use the new money to improve the future trajectory of the company. They had to pull the proposal because it was clear that the shareholders were not going to vote for it. What's weird to me is, okay, that's obviously what the shareholder, they did not want this to happen. They did not want to be diluted. So what they did, in my opinion, was they took advantage of the shareholder base by saying, okay, we'll figure out a backdoor dilution. We'll find this preferred equity unit. We'll get everyone to overlook what we're doing by calling it APE. And then we're going to launch that. And they're attempting to dilute it. It is down, actually, as we're talking right now, it hit a new all-time low. And since its debut in August, it is down 80%. And they've only done 3.5% of the dilution. They've raised just over $36 million. And to me, that's a little devious. You're covering something up in a very fancy looking bow. Look, it's called APE. It's for the apes. And it was all this concept of like, we're going to show the synthetic shares. And really, it was clear dilution. And the dilution itself isn't even going that well. It's down 80%. And they've only raised $36 million when they have $5 million in debt.
First trade was 10.5. Things trading at $1 and change. It's down a lot more than 80%.
Oh, from its debut, it was first trade I think was around 7 at least. That's what I saw.
No. The first trade was 10.5. I mean, you could have sold all you wanted between 9.5 and 10.5, and
so it's down considerably. Yeah.
And you know, to your point, the problem is the guy works for the shareholders, and he's done nothing shareholder friendly. My idea was shareholder friendly. As far as, Gasparino, you, me, however it looks, we're all attacked mercilessly by a whole crowd, internally and externally in that ape community. You're attacked. I'm attacked. Gasparino's attacked. Everyone's attacked. Women are attacked. Everyone's attacked. So when you're attacked, you can do it one of two ways. You can ignore it or you can push back. He's a 60-some-odd-year-old Italian American. He's not taking shit from anyone, including me, Gasparino. Him and I have gone at it, right? So he'll push and fight back. Is it the way everyone should do it? Who knows? But it's Twitter. It's what goes on. But point of fact is, if you listen to him, you would have saved yourself a lot of money. If you would have listened to me to get your ass out of that thing in front of the ape, you would have saved yourself a lot of money. And the problem is the guy running the company who should be looking out for the shareholders really fucked the shareholders hard. And that's a shame. And he's profited immensely. And the shareholders have suffered immensely. And I'm just saying it's not good. It's not a good look. It's not a good outcome. It's not a good ending because he still has debt. And he did bullshit like spend company money to buy a broken down gold mine, which makes absolutely zero sense other than to bail out his friends, his friends who own the stock who were buried in it. And I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And again, it's screwing the person who works hard to make their money, who speculates on the stock, and you'd expect the guy to run it to look out for the holders instead of screwing the holders. And it's just not good. Just not a good look.
I would love to get your unadulterated thoughts on what I'm currently doing. So for everyone listening and for you, right now, like it's all publicly available on the brokerage public. Like this is something that anyone can see. I'm still an owner of GME, of AMC, and APE. And my reasoning for that is more so of this conversation, this studio. Everything I do, I own to this retail trading and investing community. And I view it almost more of like an ideological or sentimental point of I got into it and I have this career because of all those people. And I feel like my ownership is more of like still having the back of that silent majority. We're talking about these people who it is a cesspool on Twitter, on Reddit. They're fighting back and forth. And to me, that's a very loud minority. Like that's all they do. They sit there and they argue, and it's a very much like a cult-like mentality and dogpiling, and there's no room for critical thought. It's very much hopium, copium, tell me what you want to hear, and if you don't, like, we're not going to talk to you. You must be against us. And maybe this is, like I said, ideological of me, I think there's a large silent majority who's like, well, hang on. I want to actually learn a little bit more about the market. I want to learn a little bit more about market structure and fraud and what's going on here. So I guess I'm not in it for Adam Aron, who has clearly profited off of this. He's a suit. And you could say the same thing about Ryan Cohen and what he did with Bed Bath & Beyond. I guess I always has this saying, like once a suit, always a suit. You can't trust a suit. But I guess like I view it as like I'm in it for these other average Joes, and that's why I still want to talk about it and figure out what's going on, opposed to these guys who, like, in my opinion, are just kind of abusing the exact same group that saved their companies and ensured that they still had a job. Because anyone listening right now, I would bet any amount of money, if it wasn't for the retail community, all of those guys would not have a job right now. AMC would not be a company. GameStop would not be a company. I view it as a lot of people during the Rona period were sitting on their couch. They all banded together, saved these companies. And now at this current chapter in the story, it just feels like there's a knife in our back.
Well, there's a knife in your back. There's also a knife in your front, because Ryan Cohen hasn't done a damn thing of what he said he'd do. Adam Aron hasn't done a damn thing. Neither of them have executed worth of shit. GameStop's missed every number since Ryan Cohen's been involved. Their platform sucks or doesn't work. They had a partnership with FTX that went by the boards. That didn't last too long. I can't stand Ryan Cohen. I think he's full of more shit than a Christmas turkey. I can't stand Adam Aron. I can't stand them. I think they're both horrifically bad operators, self-interested, and they don't care about their investors. Having said that, I totally understand how you want to be part of the movement, that you owe it to it, that Joe Sixpack or the retail investor deserves a shot. But all I want to say to that is, put in money in these names if that's what you want, that A, you can afford to lose. B, you understand why you're in it. You're in it for a movement. You're in it for the inspiration. You're in it to make a change. You're in it because you want to say you think this could be the future. I get that, right? But don't put everything you got in it. Don't put in it money you can't afford to lose, because the guys running these companies are dog shit. They're horrifically bad operators. They can't operate to save their ass, and both of them are completely full of shit. Don't confuse your investment with these guys running good companies. They've both done shitty jobs for shareholders. Shitty jobs. The GameStop numbers suck. They completely suck. That exchange either doesn't work, or it has no volume, or no one cares. The FTX partnership was bullshit. Ryan Cohen is a disaster on what he did with Bed Bath & Beyond. A disaster. Adam Aron's a disaster. But if you want to own the stock, know why you're in it. Know why you're in it. Understand why you're in it. You're prepared to lose because you're part of a movement, but you do not have money in this thing that if you lost it, you'd be on the streets.
Of course.
That's all. And everyone needs to, if you're going to pitch the guy inside, you play him to pull. Understand why you're in this thing, why, and if something changes, get the fuck out. If you're in it to make money, I think you need your head looked at, because I think the way these guys operate these companies, some strike by lightning short squeeze, which can always happen, but that's a bad bet, right? You're not going to make money here because these companies fundamentally are just fucked. Now, you can be in it because you want to screw institutions or against the man or memes. All that's totally fine. I get it, right? But that's different than thinking they're going to beat numbers or do fundamentally better or change the world. They're not. They're simply not. So I'm not arguing with you why you're in it. Totally fine. But I would just caution people, only have in these things money you can afford to lose.
Man.
And you could be part of history or a movement or something like that. I get it, right? But fundamentally, these companies are fucked. And they're really fucked by the clowns they have running. And Ryan Cohen is a clown of astronomical proportion. Astronomical. And the only one who's as big a clown as him is Adam Aron. So that's my opinion there. So I'm not knocking you for your decision, but I do not think you have your money that can hurt you if you lost it in either of these names.
Exactly right. I mean, and this really comes with any trade and or investment. You're putting the money on the table that you could afford to lose. And I would actually add a little bit onto that of don't let the internet, if you're actively trading something because it's moving, actively trade it. You don't let the internet force someone to be like a bag holder. Do what is appropriate for you. And obviously you have to have some financial responsibility. Whatever you're doing with your money, understand that that amount of money could go to zero. Those are very wise words, and I think that's a perfect point to at least pause this particular discussion. For anyone who wants to know what Marc is up to, in the description of the video below, you'll be able to find his Twitter and all of his other related information if you want to know what he's up to on a day-to-day basis. But as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope everyone listening to this, hopefully you learned a thing or two, but obviously let me know your thoughts in a comment below. Thank you, Marc.
Matt, thanks for having me. I am partial to you. I think you do a really good job. We don't always have to agree, but I think we have a mutual respect, and I have respect for what you're doing. I think you're trying to help people out. I think you're sincere in approach. And folks, he's a legit guy. He takes what he does seriously, and one day when he grows up, I think he's going to be something. He's going to be something one day when he grows up.
I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks again for having me.